Oh no, I have to tuck this in. I have to make it look pretty.
There you go.
Are we recording?
We are recording here, and this isn't going to repel. You need to be up here.
Come on, you got to get up. Up here. There you
There you go.
We can't have the wagging tail.
That's right.
Here we go.
Stuff. And we're rolling! Hi guys, I'm Ben Farmer, and I'm a cinephile.
I'm Megan Carver, and I'm a cine newbie. We
Back to one.
We watch.
If this were live, if this were on Broadway,
yeah,
you couldn't do that.
I couldn't do that over. That's for film.
That's right.
We watch all kinds of movies, new and old,
and we let you know if you should watch them too. Welcome back to So I Married a Cinephile. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see our dog is going a little nuts back here.
He's deciding to nest himself into the couch.
Into the back of the couch.
And has hidden himself. What is happening?
We're just going to let this roll.
We're just going to let this happen. And if you're watching the podcast, you should definitely go check out our YouTube channel to see Rocket be a weirdo.
There you go.
Are you better?
Are you all fixed now?
Rocket tends to get upset if we don't pay attention to him.
And then he'll start
burrowing and nesting with all kinds of fury. At any rate,
I think we have a first. I think our watching of this musical, is the first non-movie.
This is technically the first non-movie.
Well, we kind of reviewed Moulin Rouge.
Right, but that's because we were comparing with the movie.
Right. This is essentially the Hamilton movie that we were supposed to guess.
So for like another version of Moulin Rouge, if we had seen In the Heights on Broadway and then we watched the In the Heights movie, we would do the same thing, but we just saw this on Broadway and now we're seeing it on TV
because we're very lucky.
Broadway. But before we dig into that, how are you, Ben?
I'm good. I'm really glad that we got some time to take the 3 hours and watch our stage production this week, which was really nice.
You did a lot of manual labor this week.
I did. I was up in a hayloft, and there was a lot of hay that I had to throw out of the back of a barn. Underneath this hay was a lot of cat shit that you couldn't see until you got rid of the hay, and you're like, oh, that's what I smell.
Oh, that's what's up here.
Because I honestly thought it was me.
You thought you smelled like cat poop?
I didn't know if by exerting myself so hard that I had evacuated my bladder. Did I pee my pants on accident? Because not only was I incredibly sweaty, I could smell urine in the air.
Oh,
and you're like,
no.
That's not me, right?
Is that me?
Is that me?
Well, and also too, though, if you're like really sweaty, you're like, is that sweat urine?
Is that right? And so I didn't want to be around anybody else just in case it was me. And then once I got rid of all the hay, I'm like, I need a flathead shovel now because I got to scrape all this other. Anyway, so it was good hard labor. I'm exhausted from it, but it's nice to get out of the house. Yeah,
second time you were there today.
This week.
This week.
Yeah.
Yes.
So very nice family who owns this barn close to here. But New Hampshire summer, and it is our country's 244th birthday.
Wow.
As far as our Declaration of Independence.
There you go.
Fuck you, England, is essentially what I want to say.
Apparently.
Yeah. So if I come across a British person tomorrow, you're getting a punch in the face.
I don't think we're going to find any British people
just in case.
New Hampshire, but you're just putting the warning out?
Right. Don't tread on me. Don't try and tax my tea.
No.
I'll throw you in the water.
Right.
Just like we did with all the tea.
Right.
You'll
grab them and say, hey, we're going on a picnic.
Hey, what flavor of tea do you want to be before?
That sounds lovely. And you go, yeah, get your tea bags. Let's go. And you put them in the car and you chat a little bit about national treasures. And Britain's amazing and wonderful. London. Then you get to Sunapee Lake and you go, just kidding, motherfucker. And shove them into the lake. And they go, why did you do this? This was so terrible.
Me declaring my independence.
Yeah. And then you leave him. So that's, I mean,
interestingly enough, I started watching Netflix's The Crown.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit conflicted, I suppose, because The Crown's a really good show, but I'm like, tomorrow I just hate the British.
Right. Apparently, I mean, it's just inherently what you have to do.
It's one day where I just don't want anything to do with
Did you know, though, that in those countries, they actually have, like, American parties to make fun of us?
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
They do like dress up like Uncle Sam, and they have like hot dogs.
Well, we are kind of a caricature, you know.
And they like go around and like people lately have been dressing up like Donald Trump and being awful and things like that. Right. It's like it's a thing.
I don't believe Donald Trump is like a representation of what America truly is.
No.
The show that we watched, however, is absolutely a representation of America.
It absolutely is.
So, but I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Officially. Now full-time freelancer.
Ayo.
Woo!
Are you scared?
Yes. Like, I think that's why, because this morning I had to repaint my nails 3 times. Because I kept like scratching them, and then I dropped a wine glass, and I was just all over the place.
Just a mess.
And I was like, I couldn't figure out why. And Ben's like, I think you're just not quite sure what to do with yourself.
Right.
And it's like, I have never been a full-time freelance before.
Yeah.
I've only ever been employed and unemployed. Like there's
never been this gray
There's never been this other gray area. It's a new venture for both of us.
Dare I say that life is teaching both of us how to deal with a lot of gray.
Yes, it is.
Yes. When we've been raised in houses or households that taught us that life is black and white.
Black and white. Yes or no, right or wrong.
Which is not true. There's a
there's
a lot of this color.
Bunch of gray.
A lot of that gray in there.
There is. So, yes. So that's been
so congrats,
very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew about it. I'm just saying congrats to sound like a good person because our listeners need to hear that.
Right. And fitness has been good too.
Mm-hmm.
My trainer, Melissa Foster, which if you want her contact info, I'm happy to provide it.
Yes.
She's helping me out with nutrition as well as weight training.
She's amazing.
And oh my God, like some of the stuff that she has me doing it's not difficult or complicated, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
Like it's stuff that takes a lot of thought. And like, I've never done reverse lunges with this kind of thought before. So like, I feel stronger. I told Melissa Farmer, I said, it's fun because when you get strong, you're like a kid on a playground again. You can jump around and do fun things.
Yeah.
When you're not strong, it's like that stuff is like, I'm going to fall and break my ass. Like,
and Melissa Foster comes from definitely a functional side of weightlifting.
Yes.
So she teaches you how to not only get strong, but also how to do these moves properly.
Yes,
even
safely.
if you only can do 2 reps.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna look.
I would
really
rather
good.
you do like 5 really good reps versus 20 horrible reps because you're gonna end up hurting yourself.
It's like do 1 good push-up as opposed to 10 really crappy.
Yeah,
reps.
and 2, she's like, let's take a look because I was like, I'm just not gonna eat any carbs. She's like, you should eat more food.
Yeah,
you're not eating enough food. You need to eat more carbs.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I guess. So yeah, it's things have been good. I'm feeling really solid and I feel like we're being given an opportunity. We're being given a shot at something.
Like your one shot?
Yeah, like
are you gonna take that shot and put it in the trash?
No, I don't think I'm gonna
You're not gonna what?
I didn't think you were gonna say and put it in the trash. I didn't think you were gonna go that far with it.
Here we go. Are you going to take that opportunity and put it in the trash?
No, I'm not going to throw away my shot.
Why would you throw away your shot?
Because this week
we watched
Hamilton!
Wow. A first, guys. We watched the recording of the original New York Broadway cast.
We, along with all
Disney
of the
Plus.
other theater nerds from high school, sat down and watched Hamilton.
This was technically our second time seeing Hamilton. A little bit of a backstory of our relationship with Hamilton, which is kind of unique.
I thought you were just going to say relationship.
I mean, it's almost a relationship.
About a relationship.
It's almost a relationship. It's right up to the cusp of a relationship with Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It is.
We just never got to what I would call the artistic first base. I don't know.
I guess that's true.
You know. So long story short,
well,
not to make a long story short, but our old apartment in New York, the one we recently left, Lynn lives still right across the street.
We've mentioned this several times.
Right.
So if you haven't heard any of our episodes before, Lin-Manuel Miranda was our neighbor.
Yes. So we saw him multiple times.
Yes.
He really likes my Batman bathrobe.
Yes.
He thinks Rocket is very cute.
I made a couple of very embarrassing moments of myself in moments of starstruck yelling.
Yes. Stuff like that.
Go back to the episode where we review Mary Poppins Returns to hear about that story.
Right. And he was very nice to me and about my Mary Poppins screener and how excited I was to watch it.
Right. So we
joked around a
but
little
before
bit.
that,
anyways.
Actually this all starts out much earlier than that.
This goes back to 2016.
No, this goes back before that. This goes back to me being in Forbidden Broadway.
Right.
Because Kurt Crowley, who is the assistant music director of Hamilton.
Yes.
I was in Forbidden Broadway and he was the music director of that. When we moved here to New York, we're not here in New Hampshire.
Right.
We
in
moved
2015.
to
When we
New York
moved
in
to New
2015. We got standing room tickets from Kurt, which was very nice of him.
February after we moved there, so we're like 6 months in.
Yeah. So we went and saw Hamilton standing for
almost
that
for 3 hours.
long.
But it didn't really feel that long.
They also had a thing you could lean on.
Yeah, so it wasn't like you're just standing.
Right, which I appreciated that.
Yeah.
There's a little bar.
You couldn't really see up on the second level of the stage.
We are the screen that you're seeing right now on YouTube, if that was the full picture, we probably got that.
Yeah. So watching it this time,
we got to see all
of it. And I'm like, like almost everybody's on stage the entire time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Because we were just seeing people's feet and we didn't know that like above they're doing all this cool
We just
movement.
assumed like nothing was happening up there.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Anyhow, so we were able to see the show with the same cast that we watched tonight on Disney Plus, which was really great. Brought back a lot of memories, but of course I caught a bunch of shit since 4 years ago, like new stuff that hit me. So yeah, it was really great to kind of experience all of this again.
And so since we don't have really a plot breakdown per IMDb,
we do actually. Hamilton
really?
just got put on IMDb. Breakdown per IMDb for Hamilton: the real life of one of America's foremost founding fathers and first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. Filmed live on Broadway from the Richard Rodgers Theater with the original Broadway cast. It's history. So, and I'm sure liberties were taken.
Sure.
But it's the story of not only Alexander Hamilton's life, but his role in what came to be the founding of the United States of America. History buffs will probably both love it and hate it because, again, I'm sure liberties were taken.
Yeah.
But it is, how would you describe the music? How would you describe it stylistically?
I mean,
because I feel like
let's really quickly go through the cast.
Okay.
Because I actually want to make sure that people know, because I feel like a lot of times people will ask us, okay, you're actors, so do you do film or theater? And we say yes.
Yes.
Like it's not something where you need to do one or the other, you can do both.
Yeah.
And a lot of these actors are known for several different film projects as well as several different Broadway projects.
Including, of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who plays Alexander Hamilton. He did music, book, and lyrics for this show.
He's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's on the North Compass or whatever it is, the Golden Compass.
He was on the Oh Hello podcast.
Oh,
recently.
He's done tons of podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, he's just he works everywhere, and he's got a really great in with Disney, of course. Listen to Mary Poppins Returns. Philippa Sue plays Eliza Hamilton. Philippa is married to Stephen Pasquale, who was in Bridges of Madison County on Broadway, who was also in Rescue Me.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite shows.
There's another one.
Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Aaron Burr.
Who I held the door open for at a coffee shop. I was with my friend Monica, who is all about him. And I was like, do you know who we just walked past? And she's like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, why? Because you were going to do that.
I just you were going to flip.
Yep.
Daveed Diggs plays Lafayette.
He was in
Thomas
Kimmy
Jefferson.
Schmidt.
He was in Kimmy Schmidt.
He was in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
That's right. And kind of rounding it out, we have Chris Jackson playing George Washington. Chris Jackson, I'm sure, has done a ton of television work. Yeah, he was. He did the voice of the chief in Moana, and he was also in Afterlife. He's been on Bull. A whole bunch of different stuff.
That's the thing.
And of course, Jonathan Groff, who plays King George. Disney buffs would know Jonathan Groff
Might
from the
know
Frozen
him,
movies.
maybe.
He's in a great series called Mindhunter, which I got screen tested for season 1.
Just want to throw that
in there. Yeah, so just a super talented cast. It was really surreal, watching the show.
Now, for where it originated, and this is something that if you're watching and you know this answer and you want to comment it, please do, because my phone doesn't have good reception down here. We're in the basement now. It was workshopped and originated off Broadway at the Public Theater was it 2015? No,
great question.
Stafford, come help us out.
Help.
I know you don't like Lin-Manuel Miranda all that much, but you can figure this out. I know you can figure this out. At any rate, it started its journey, and this is actually something that Lin-Manuel Miranda has said in interviews. He's like, if you want to make it rich and you want to do big, great things, don't write a musical. It's a bad idea because most of 70% of musicals that are written fail. Most of them don't do well. And before this written in the Heights, but he wrote this and it was workshopped and then it was off Broadway and it was another 3 years before it finally made it to Broadway. Wow. He's like, you will see stuff last for 5 to 7 years in development. And all of a sudden people think that you're an overnight sensation. Thank you, Stafford. It was 2015. Thank you, Stafford. Okay. So it started in 2015. So thinking about it, from when it started to when it opened, can you imagine being involved with a project for that long?
I mean, his roles especially, he came up with the entire thing. And so he was just in it to win it from the beginning. He did music, book, and lyrics and played Alexander Hamilton. There's no way to not be connected to it.
No.
So
and so effectively, if you don't know Hamilton, we're going to do a quick breakdown of the play for you. So we start out with Alexander Hamilton, which I loved this, by the way, we're essentially starting him off where he's in the Caribbean. He's a kid. He has a really rough go of it.
Horrible.
Really rough go of it. Yeah. His dad abandons him. His mom and him both get sick and his mom dies. He goes to stay with his cousin and his cousin commits suicide. So then he tries to make a life for himself and people see how talented he is. So they raise money for him to be able to go to the United States.
Right.
So he comes to the United States and then he meets
New York specifically.
Where
you can be a new man.
You can be a new man. He meets Aaron Burr, and they become kind of like acquaintances / pals.
Yeah, kind of rivals.
Like frenemies. Like
kind of
straight up
of each other.
Frenemies.
Yeah.
If you look up the definition of frenemies, it would be that, and then the Mean Girls.
Right.
So he comes, and I love that at this beginning part. Did you notice that he pitches his voice?
Yeah.
Way higher at the beginning. He's like, so how'd you do it? How'd you graduate so fast? How'd you do that?
Oh, I want to do that too.
So I appreciated that. Because Lynn doesn't talk like that.
No.
So he pitched it up higher, which I really loved.
Yeah.
And then he kind of meets up with some other friends. Lafayette, Hercules Mulligan, and
Lafayette?
Yeah.
Yeah, we said Lafayette, Hercules,
Mulligan, and Lawrence. I want to say Lawrence.
It's John Lawrence.
John Lawrence. I was about to say Laurence Olivier.
Lawrence of Arabia.
See, I think that we should actually make the movies of the stuff that I mess up. So we should do Braveheart made by Mel Brooks. That would be great. So he meets up with them and they all have the same idea. It's 1776. Hey, this is kind of bullshit that we're being still managed by different country.
America has been, colonized clearly, but they still hold England as sovereign, and England is taxing without representation, of course, specifically, the tea. So there's a lot to be angry about because they are citizens technically of an American nation, but they're sovereign to England, who's 3,000 miles away.
Right.
So there's still some cross the sea tyranny happening.
Right.
Yes, if that's redundant, I apologize.
Well, it's good to explain.
It's history,
It's good to explain.
Yeah, it's good to explain.
So then they kind of all band together and start rapping, and that's the show.
They start a doo-wop group on the street corner, and they go from there. And that's how our Constitution is written.
And then you know, there's like lots of different ways that they want to move forward.
Sure.
Like they all want to utilize the war to be able to like get more money, or
Yes.
I don't know how that works. Like when you're in a war, back then when you were in a war and you came out on the other side, if you had like been in battle or were a general or whatever, was there a certain like stipend that you might have received, or was
I think if you were educated, I think if you came from if you were either educated or came from a well-to-do family,
mm-hmm.
if a war is coming,
mm-hmm.
then you want to be not only a part of that, but also a part of like like you said, the room where it happens. Like
right.
You want to be somewhere significant so that you can obtain status, fortune, and glory.
So by being a part of that, he's getting the clout that he needs to succeed.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And I think all four of those guys kind of go about it in their own different way.
Yes.
Including Aaron Burr.
Yes, very much so. Aaron Burr, if you have any relatives that are like, oh, I don't like to talk politics, that's Aaron Burr in a person.
Right.
Like, it makes me furious.
Yes.
So then they...
so they're all in the Revolutionary War.
They're all in the Revolutionary War, which I loved all the choreography that was done for this movie.
Holy shit.
Like, it's insane.
It's like a combination, like there's so many styles, I think. I wouldn't even dare to try and name them all.
No, there's ballet,
also like
for
interpretive dancing.
There's lyrical, like
it was more interpretive to me than anything.
Yeah.
And you're right, like there's all of those styles, but like every single move, even if you watch the background actors and the ensemble, every single move they make is actually commenting on what's happening on stage.
Yes.
Because there are no spoken lines in this show. And maybe that's something like if you're not at all familiar with Hamilton, it's a mix of hip hop, R&B,
singing, like musical theater
singing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rap, but like it's a specific type of like lyrical poetry, or like what's Lynn's show that he does, like the live one?
Freestyle Love Supreme. So yes, it's
freestyle, right?
It's freestyle.
That's what you would call it. Right. I'm the whitest man in America.
I know, like
every time I watch this show, I'm like, hey, I could audition for King George.
That's it.
And that's it.
I can't be in this show, and that's fine. There was actually recently an article that came out that was about white women and casting calls and stuff like that. This one was like, please stop showing up for shows that you know that there's not a role for you.
Right.
Like, don't show up for Once on This Island. Fucking don't. Don't show up for Hamilton. Don't show up for In the Heights. Right. This is not for you. And at the very end of that article, she's like, P.S. Hamilton still is not for you. Like, this is not, it's not my show.
Which raises a good question. And they actually asked Lynn this on the Oh Hello podcast. Like, what happens when a school that is
I don't want to
dominantly white students, a high school, wants to do Hamilton, but 90% of the student body is white. Like, what do you do? Like, I kind of want to see that. I don't. Just to see.
No, I don't. Do you know how much of a fucking train wreck that would be? Like, not only are they not going to be good at rapping, B, they're also awkward puppy teenagers. So, like, all of the stylistic dancing and all of the work that goes into this and the artistry is going to be dumbed down by like 50%, if not more. Yeah. No.
I bet there's a lot of specifics they would have to hit. Like,
yes.
Or at least you have to be, your school has to have
I think
this
it would
sort
need
of ratio.
To be, right. It's like the cast needs to be at least like 70%
and I think
non-Caucasian.
That's totally fair in my opinion, because
fair.
that is like the groundwork. That's like the DNA of this show.
Yes.
And it's so much commentary about, if you look at the entire cast, like for starters, it was written by Lynn, who was a native Puerto Rican, if I'm not mistaken.
He was born in Puerto Rico, or his parents are in Puerto Rico. They immigrated here.
Okay.
So he's American.
So he is
But
American.
both of his parents are Puerto Rican.
He is of Puerto Rican heritage.
Yeah, he grew up in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, George Washington, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson are all played by black actors or actors of
I think
mixed
there's
races.
like one white girl in the whole show. And that's anytime I've ever seen it, it's like there's one token white girl that's like, and she's just a dancer. Like, that's it. Yeah. Other than that, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the cast is amazing.
And like, I remember too, okay, we're getting into
so they're all in the Revolutionary War.
They're in the Revolutionary War.
Hamilton really wants to lead a battalion of men. He wants to prove himself on the battlefield. He's been hired by Washington to play Washington's secretary, essentially.
Right.
Because Hamilton is so smart. Washington's like, no, I need your brain. I need you here. like sending all of my correspondence, getting everything out there, the organizational part. And they really hit the dramatic moments of the war like really well, especially when, you know, British ships pull into New York Harbor.
Or like too, there were anytime, and this is what I was going to say about the choreography, anytime that there's like a reference to an explosion or things like that, like they would pick up
props,
like props and like do stuff, or they would all go like
or like
this,
the Eye of
like,
the Hurricane scene where like stuff's just like circling
they
around
used
the stage,
their bodies and they used props and they used
there's
the
also
scenery.
2 different rounds on the stage, and one goes one direction.
So they utilized all of that to really comment on what was happening in the moment, whether it be like, you know, emotionally or whether it be physically. And that happened too, like in the music. Like I remember when they're talking and he's like, see the blood and the shit spray. And like there's one part where he's like, we've resorted to eating our own horses, and you actually hear a whinny in the music. Like there's so much that is done.
I think they really tried to put you in the insanity of what it was to be in that war. Because if you really think about it, without the aid of the French, we were kind of like this not ragtag, but it was a lot of militia. It was a lot of like shoot and fall back, attack the British at night, steal whatever you can until our reinforcements from the French show up. And that's when the war kind of took
scrappy and staunch as fuck.
And like, Washington was, of course, amazing at leading the Continental Army. So Hamilton essentially, he finally gets his chance. He finally gets his chance to lead. And it's the, is it Yorktown? The Battle of Yorktown?
Yes, I think so.
Where it all turns. It's of course
him and Lafayette.
Him and Lafayette who kind of turned the tide of the war.
Yes. So.
And now that the war is over, we have our own.
Wait. Before that, the other thing that he tries to do, which I can't tell, and I'm curious what other people think about this. In the story of the musical, they're talking about how if you marry a sister, one of the Schuyler sisters, you're immediately going to rise up in social status.
Because their dad is a senator.
Right. And so like one of the main things that Hamilton wants to do is marry a Schuyler sister, and specifically goes to a party to try to woo one of them. And so he starts originally with Angelica, but then Angelica kind of passes him off to Eliza, who he ends up marrying.
Correct.
I'm trying to figure out, though, how genuine in originality. I think if by this story, it seems like by the end they were very much in love with one another.
Yes.
But in originality, was this just an attempt to try to, like, an advantageous attempt to get up in the social ladder? Or was it that he was there, he was just trying to find, you know, a girl that was richer than him, you know, as a way to elevate his status, and then ended up that was when I wasn't sure about. People did that
all the time back then, and people probably still do it a lot today. So I don't know. Like that would be something I would have to like read up on. Or
and without having read the book, without having read the Hamilton book, do you think that Angelica and Hamilton actually had a thing going on? Because there are letters.
No, physically, no.
Physically, no.
I bet that there was an emotional relationship there.
Okay.
That was extramarital.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like from the letters that were written, he definitely like intended it, like especially with the punctuation they talk about.
Yes.
My dearest,
Angelica.
So yeah, like it, and it sounds like Hamilton was smart enough to know how to maybe manipulate that kind of situation, because we find out that he's never satisfied.
Right.
So he's always trying to like satiate this
and
sort of.
And it's interesting too, being able
monster.
To see it this close up, because when we saw it, we didn't get to see.
I mean, not only the second level, but like their expression
God.
that close. Like we were able to like go up on stage after and meet the actors and everything.
But like
during the show, since they used Steadicam and crane shots and dollies, they shot this over 3 days.
Yeah,
3 different performances.
Fuck Cats. This is what it should be when it comes to making a movie musical. This is what it should be.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. In the Heights is going to be amazing, as is West Side Story. At least it better fucking be, or I will be
I think
furious.
they're going to be two totally different. Because it's Spielberg doing West Side Story.
Yes.
And Spielberg has very much his own style.
Yes, he does.
Is Lynn directing?
Yeah,
in
Lynn
the
directed In the Heights.
Okay,
Yeah.
good for him.
Yeah.
All right. So I think they're going to be two totally different tones.
But okay, so war's good.
War's over.
We did it.
Oh shit, we have a country.
We have
now.
a country to try to
beat
make
back England.
Yes.
King George is like, good luck.
Right.
Fuckers.
Oh my God, he did so much with that role.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see Brian Darcy James in that role.
Yeah, it was really cool to see John Groff because he'd already left the show when they filmed this. He specifically came back.
Did he really?
For 3 days to do this because they won the original New York Broadway cast.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Yeah, of course, I'll do it." It was really great to not only like see him in the role, but like he had so many like. Not cowboy close-ups, but they were all
all up
shots.
in there,
and he didn't do anything.
No,
like, it was all in his voice.
Yep.
You know, he was very still, except when he started like moving his shoulders, and he had his scepter and all that kind of stuff.
Or so like when he freaked out and was like, "No, don't change the subject." Spit,
like,
oh my God!
His face. It was so great.
Yes, like if you're gonna do a drinking game with Hamilton, that needs to be one when Jonathan Groff gets spit all over his chin because it happens several times.
So great to see, like an actor.
I was gonna say you were probably like, yes.
Someone who does like outdoor Shakespeare. I'm like, good for you, buddy. So yeah, like they start forming what is to be our government, our 3 separate but equal branches, writing the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Hamilton had some shitty ideas at the beginning, but like he was writing stuff like he was running out of time. Right. He just spent all of his waking hours trying to get things passed and form this government, which we fought so hard for and shed so much blood for. And you also get a glimpse into his personal life, like his marriage to Eliza. He ends up having this extramarital affair, which is like tied into some blackmail at the same time. Yes. He's still sort of serving under Washington. I think he was trying to run for president, and then we find out about the affair that he was having.
Right. He effectively was like considering it and wanted to potentially run for president, but then once
Thomas Jefferson
the Reynolds papers came out, which the Reynolds papers, if you haven't watched Hamilton and you're just listening to this, what are you doing? Go watch Hamilton and then listen to this
right now.
But when Eliza and Angelica go up for the summer, they go upstate. He is lonely. He is stressed. He runs into this woman who claims that she's like, "Oh, I need help. I'm so
She lives like a block away from them, I guess."
Yeah. Which I have to commend that actress, and I can't remember her name. Because she also plays Peggy.
She plays the third.
And not only did she have like a physical transformation in terms of how she walked and how she behaved when she was playing the 2 different characters, but her voice actually changed. Like her singing voice for Peggy was very sweet and like almost nasal. But her singing voice for what's the first name?
Not Peggy, but
Reynolds. Miranda Reynolds. Mariah. Mariah, as in okay. Mariah Reynolds. She, it was like sultry and like deep.
Yeah, it was totally different, and that was another great part of the show because in the first half you're really focused on meeting the characters in the Revolutionary War until the end of the Revolutionary War, and then the people who were playing, those who were playing Lafayette and those roles, they actually changed characters for the second half of the show.
Yes.
So they're not off stage a whole lot. Like Aaron Burr stays Aaron Burr the whole time.
Holy shit!
But I think only like 4 or 5 of the cast play the same role throughout.
No, yeah, like
so they're
you
constantly
have your base
moving,
costume and you change the accents of it to dictate whatever character you're playing.
So we go through a lot of the big personal momentous times in Hamilton's life. It's weird. Like there's a part of me that doesn't want to spoil it, even though this story is 300 years old. I feel like it's really something to be experienced watching it, even on a TV screen, because they do such a great job filming and getting the coverage.
I mean, that's the other thing too I really appreciated about the cinematography for this, which this is where film comes in, is that not only, it wasn't just like, filming your mom, filming you doing your ballet recital on an iPhone. It wasn't just of the stage. They did several shots in the auditorium, but then they also did them above. So you had like
a bird's eye view.
You also had one behind, so it was actually from the back of the stage.
So from the bird's eye view, when both revolves were going,
oh my God.
Like, some people were moving this way, some people were moving the opposite way. Thomas Kail directed this, who also directed it for the stage. He directed some episodes of Fosse Verdon. He also directed Grease Live in 2016.
I can't remember if that was one that was acceptable.
So he directed this. He directed the filming of Hamilton, but he also directed what happened on stage.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
So they used the same guy for both, which I really appreciate.
And also too, no, I forgot.
Oh, well, wait. I was gonna ask you what if there's something that stood out to you. Was there a number that you feel like you heard differently? Something you caught that you didn't before? Because I know you listen to the music a lot.
I do.
I don't.
Right.
The last time
I listened to it a lot before we went and saw it, and you didn't listen to it at all. Right.
So the first half of the show was super confusing.
Right, because you're like, what are they saying? What?
Slow down. Speak normal, please.
Can you get me my reader so I can catch up on the plot?
Did you know this was rap? I didn't know. I knew it was. I knew it was lyrical. So yeah, was there anything different for you that you caught this time that stood out to you, other than like cinematography?
The biggest thing that stuck out to me, and this is something that I feel I struggle with as an actor, when you are doing film acting versus theater acting, a lot of times it can feel like the theater acting that you do is way too big for film. Yeah. And when you do stuff for film, it's way too little for theater because you're trying to get, the back of the audience. But in this, and I'm not sure if they adjusted for the video camera, because I don't think they did. There was so much subtlety to their acting. Like there was like, to call out one part when they're singing Dear Theodosia, and they're both singing My Father Wasn't Around. He's straddled on a chair, or no, he's sitting on a chair, and he's just like playing with his wedding ring, and he's so thoughtful, and he's saying My Father Wasn't Around. Oh, it just hit me in a different way.
There's some really great moments that I think you're right. Those closer angles really helped shine a little bit more. And what they did, they actually filmed all the wide stuff one day. They came in on a Monday, which is technically their day off. And that's when they did, I believe that's when they did all of the Steadicam and then the close-up stuff. Yeah. So I think they actually had time to sort of mentally prepare. And I think these guys have played, both sides in that they've done theater and camera work. Yeah. So they sort of knew, as any good film actor, like when to like save it for your own coverage. Like don't blow it all when you're filming the other person. Right. Like if the camera were on you, I wouldn't use all my emotional power because we're getting your coverage. But even when it's on
still,
me,
like the subtlety and the authenticity and the honesty. And that's stuff that even when you're there, and like when we were in literally the back row, you could feel it.
Sure.
Like we didn't need to be as close up as it is when this was filming to get that feeling in person. Yeah. Which I think that's why, again, a lot of people in our industry are worried if theater is going to make a comeback, that during all the pandemic and everything, that's the death of theater. And I absolutely disagree.
I don't think so.
That's like someone saying, I don't think concerts are going to happen again.
No. Regardless, we'll have a vaccine someday. So post-vaccine, I imagine theater would more or less return to
absolutely
normal. But until then, it might be a little bit dicey.
Sure.
But no, I don't think it's the death of theater.
No.
Plus, like, you have to ask yourself, like, what is theater? Is theater a collective experience of, like, hundreds of people sitting in a Broadway theater? Right. Or is it what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
Like, it all has to do with finding a venue and an avenue to tell your story.
Right. Well, my friend David, who was, he handled sound for the Office musical parody, he had posted a really great point that's like, yes, it sucks that Broadway is stuck. We're stuck until we have a vaccine, which then once the vaccine is available, will take time to implement. Yeah. But let's not let this go back to what it was before.
Right.
Of course, it's good to have Broadway theater, and of course, it's good to have that as a tourist attraction, but there's such incredible, amazing theater in the town that you live in.
Yes.
Let's take time to support that.
Yeah.
Let's take time to invest ourselves as actors and creatives in that.
Yeah.
Especially now, since a lot of us have had to move away from New York for the time being. So but what it ultimately did, the biggest thing for me was thinking to myself, I actually don't need to change all that much between film and theater. Or if I do need to make a change, that's what the director is for. They will let me know
Truly.
if I need to make an adjustment.
Truly.
And so I think that was the biggest thing, that I had all the feels, even though it was a film version, because it was all authentic.
And what an opportunity for, I mean, not everyone got to see Hamilton when it was on stage, because not only was it a hot ticket, it was an expensive one.
Yeah.
And we got very lucky because we knew someone who was on the production side.
Right.
So we were able to see it, but not everyone was able to. And what a great opportunity to not just see like some camcorder recording from the back of the house.
Yes.
You get super close to these actors.
Which again, I really, and I know I've said this a bunch of times, I think this is the future of Broadway theater.
I sure
think
hope so.
that this is, because I've actually worked on a website where that's something that they're focusing on. There's Broadway producers that are focusing on this. They want to make sure that they have a Broadway production, but they have a filmed version just like this that they can also monetize.
Yeah.
So I
just in case.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea and a great way for people who might not be able to see Hamilton.
As producers, it more or less helps protect your investment, but also gets it out to a wider audience, because even though there were a ton of different tours going on right now, it would still be hard to see. It would still be a really hot ticket. And so, now everyone essentially in the world, for the most part, because Disney's everywhere, can hopefully experience this and be a part of what I consider to be the musical of a generation. Like, there is nothing that has come along like this. And it would be super hard for something to make as big of a cultural impact as this has had, because it resonates, especially now, in so many ways. Like George Washington's Goodbye was still,
oh my God.
George Washington's Goodbye was hard to watch because we saw it the February after Trump was inaugurated, and you cannot help but feel like, oh, that was Barack Obama saying goodbye. And you feel the weight of that, especially now. And I think it really gives you an appreciation for what I consider to be the genius of our founding fathers and the system that we have, because essentially anyone can run for president, clearly, but at the same time, the show is right. It teaches us to say goodbye. Yeah. Like, they have their 4 or their 8 years, and now they have to pass it off to somebody else to see.
Well, and also too, I think that's
your turn.
Big part of, like, you have no control over who lives, who dies, who tells your story. Even Burr is like, I am the only thing that I can control. Yeah. Which is true. So it's like your choices, your actions, and what you do at the end of the day is what will live on after you're gone. Right. So, like, just,
it's very weighty. It's very weighty, especially now.
Okay. So, and then also too, don't forget, Mike Pence went and saw this with his daughters.
Yes, he did.
And he went and saw it when Lynn was no longer in the show. But, what was his name?
I forget his name.
We're terrible, terrible fans of Hamilton to not know this. But he's an HIV positive individual. And at the end of the show, everybody in the audience booed Pence out.
Not everybody, but
a lot of people did. And so they booed him out, but he apparently still was close enough to be able to hear the speech that was like, we hope you understand and see that this entire cast is made up of the same kind of people that founded our country. Yes. And we hope that you take lesson and learn from what we've shown here today.
Well, not only that, like you said, this is an HIV positive individual. Mike Pence has been one for Pray the Gay Away. Yes. He's a part of an administration that tried to take basic human rights away from the LGBTQIA group. Yep. Mike Pence is, I think Mike Pence believes he's a good person. Oh, yeah. But, like everyone.
No, but it's like all the people that thought they were good people that were heading up and starting Handmaid's Tale. Sure. They were like, no, we're following the Bible. We're doing what we're supposed to. We're going to fuck women to make babies.
These themes of this story where history has its eye on you, who's going to tell your story when you're gone. There's, especially when you get to the latter half of the show, it veers away from like youthful ambition to like the weightiness of like your legacy. Yeah. And what you leave behind.
And no, so not to, again, because we do want people to watch this, so not to spoil too much about what the show is. Yeah. But at the end, of course, Hamilton passes away. And
well, he doesn't pass away.
Well, he passes away from something.
He didn't die in his sleep.
No.
It's not like he slipped away.
No, he just fell. He
Like,
fell
wow.
into a puddle and never came back out
Just,
again.
Wow.
Just
Chance.
deep puddle. No, but so he is killed.
Yes.
And Eliza survives him.
Yes.
And does incredible things with the time that she is given.
Yeah.
And I loved too that because that's the thing too that's hard as a woman watching this show, is that there's so many roles for men and there's so few for women. Yeah. Which is hard to see. Yeah. And I actually would love if there's been any information from Lin-Manuel Miranda about his thoughts on gender blind casting and what that might look like. Yeah. I remember that there was a production of Jesus Christ Superstar that was done at my high school where they cast Jesus as a woman.
Who?
That did not fly. It was fine with the principal. It was fine with everybody else. But as soon as the Jesuits heard, they're like, the fuck? So I'm curious about that. But at the end, when Eliza, this is something I asked Ben and I asked my Aunt Elizabeth as well, because she was watching it with us. When at the very end, she gasps and like starts to cry. What was that?
Yes.
So I'm curious what people thought that was. I've heard several different thoughts.
It's interesting, like how I think it hits people uniquely, depending on the individual, I think. I think it's a combination of all of those things. It's a combination of like, look at what we helped create. I see
heaven,
afterlife, heaven. I see my husband. I see my son. I see, this woman had a very difficult life.
Yes, she did.
But she also accomplished and fought for lots.
Yes, she did.
So I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I wouldn't dream of asking Philippa Sue because I feel like it's...
No, let's get her on the phone.
Is it like, let's call her right now?
Let's call her up.
Because I think that's an actor's secret. I wouldn't give that away. Mm-hmm. Like if someone asked me in an interview if I was gasping and like they were like, "Oh, what did you think of?" I'd be
well,
like,
that's like Jenna, when people ask Jenna Fisher what was actually in the note in the teapot, and she'll never tell anybody.
Never tell. That stuff is for you. You can share your reaction to that.
And I bet you anything Lynn has an intention for that, but he's not going to share what that is.
I bet that I really want to know like what the creation of that moment was.
Me too.
It was very personal. But it was really great to kind of see the show end with
a
the
strong
perspective,
female woman.
Well, but the perspective of his wife, talking to, her husband up at the ether. Have I done enough? I fought for slavery. I attended, the creation and the erection of the Washington Monument. I founded the first orphanage in New York City. And she's still asking herself, is it enough? So it was really cool just to see the end of the show told through the lens of Hamilton's wife, which I thought was
That's a really great way of doing it. So I have trivia. Do you have trivia?
I can.
What trivia do you have? How much trivia do you have?
I have a couple of good ones.
Okay. All right.
So why don't we start with yours?
Cue the trivia music. Okay. So, no, you go first because I have to find the good ones.
Oh, okay. Both Ryan Coogler and Rob Marshall expressed interest in directing an actual film adaptation of the musical.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine Rob Marshall?
Nope. I mean, Chicago's amazing. Don't get me wrong.
The film version of Chicago
is incredible, but stay away. This is not yours.
I feel like this...
Just like this is... I don't show up to Hamilton.
The issue is that Disney owns the rights, and I'm wondering if Lynn has any final say about how it gets adapted. I imagine he would get some say in it, right?
He did Moana. Right? I think he's got some pull.
Yeah, so I hope this is, for better or for worse, I hope this is the only filmed version of Hamilton, because
I do too.
This is the way I believe it was intended to be seen.
Yes, I don't want the Cats version of this.
And I mentioned this earlier. At the time the show was filmed, John Groff had already left the role of King George. He returned especially for this filming, and he provides in character the voice of the pre-show announcer at the beginning of the film, welcoming the audience to the show. So that's John Groff's voice that you hear at the top.
I'll do one. Hamilton started as a mixtape, not a musical. Initially, Miranda said he was working on a concept album inspired by the life of Alexander Hamilton called the Hamilton Mixtape. He had always had an idea of it turning into a stage, but he began a stage presentation, but he began with the idea of a concept album the same way that Andrew Lloyd Webber did Evita and Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
This performance of the original Broadway cast of Hamilton was filmed 2 weeks before the originals departed the show. It was originally filmed to be spliced into the documentary Hamilton's America in 2016, but they clearly used this footage to release the stage version of it, which I thought was really great. So.
Hamilton wasn't always a sung-through musical. Hamilton is sung and rapped from start to finish, but it wasn't always that way. They actually went down the road with a playwright at one point. Lynn said, there's a version of Act 1 where we had songs, and they were the songs that are in the show. But we found that if you start with the opening number, you can't go back to speech.
Right.
It's just the ball is...
It's really jarring.
Yeah.
It's really jarring to hear after all that.
Yes.
Eliza Hamilton also established the first school in our old neighborhood, Washington Heights, which is the setting of Lin-Manuel's other play / film In the Heights, and where Lynn currently lives.
He wrote You'll Be Back on his honeymoon.
Which is the song of the jilted lover.
Yep.
Which is the song of like, fuck you.
Yep. He wrote that it's a breakup song between America and England, which is fabulous.
Yes.
You're leaving me? Really? Well, good luck with that.
Right.
He wrote the song while on his honeymoon without a piano.
Wow.
Yes.
What a great song.
I have 2 more, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't have any more?
I mean, I do.
You go.
Oh, okay. This was filmed over the course of 3 days in June of 2016. It started by filming a live Sunday matinee performance with cameras in the audience, after which the cast and crew spent the rest of the day and evening filming the close-ups, the dolly shots, and the crane shots.
What a long day.
Filming continued all day Monday, which is normally the cast's dark day. That's their day off. With more close-ups and Steadicam footage, more filming took place on Tuesday morning before shooting another live performance on Tuesday night, with cameras again in the audience but in different positions.
Did they just have coffee in IVs?
Lin-Manuel said it was basically a 3-day film shoot with the best rehearsed cast in the history of the movies, because we'd all been doing the show for a year at this point, so everyone just knew their stuff. So I'm sure it was easier than it sounds, but still, that must have been a very tumultuous 3 days.
At first, Miranda couldn't decide if he wanted to play Hamilton or Burr.
Really?
At first, he said, I feel an equal affinity with Burr. Burr is every bit as smart as Hamilton and every bit as gifted and comes from the same amount of loss as Hamilton. But because of the way they are wired, Burr hangs back where Hamilton charges forward. I feel like I have been Burr in my life as many times as I have been Hamilton.
Sure.
But eventually, he chose Hamilton.
Yeah. I love that. And that's something I really loved about the way he sort of wrote those characters. Like, you can see they're sort of the same, like, intellect, you know? They just go about it in different ways. Like, Hamilton's the offense, Burr's the defense.
Right.
And I love that comment about how I've been both.
Yeah.
Because the duality of man, you know.
'Tis.
The last one I have, the show's popularity has been credited with the U.S. Treasury for getting its plan to replace Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill. They were gonna replace him. But now that this show is so incredibly popular,
they're like, you fucking can't do that.
Yeah, so.
You can't do it. My last one, Hamilton's set is symbolic. The designer told Washington Post that when designing the set, he decided on something that looked unfinished, mid-construction colonial era building. And then, like, you see wooden period scaffolding around half of the show. The turntables are on the stage to inspire, like, the whirlwind that we had talked about.
Yeah.
But the set actually feet taller.
Wow.
Because the country is progressing, the foundation is getting bigger. And quills and parchment replace the rifles that are hanging on the walls.
Oh, interesting.
Because the war is over and now it's time to govern.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yes. Oh, wait, I do have one more.
Okay,
I'm so
ahead.
sorry. The biggest issue physically for any of the actors who are not dancers, although I bet you dancers, is the stairs. It was, who was it? James Monroe Iglehart, who had previously played the genie in Broadway's Aladdin, said he replaced Lafayette. He said, French accent is not the hardest, not the speed of the lyrics or the show, it's the stairs. There are stairs going up, stairs going down, there's stairs backstage, on stage. At one point, he said, I did a cartwheel 8 times a week and tap danced in Aladdin, but in this show, I swore and said, what is up with the Stairmaster show you guys built?
That's amazing.
Yes. So,
would you recommend Hamilton.
I absolutely would. And I would not only recommend, but I would plead that everyone watch this.
Yeah.
Not only because does it have an incredible message about perseverance, about grit, about acceptance of flaws, about forgiveness, like the list goes on. Not only is it an amazing story about a man and the creation of the nation that we live in, but also too, it's, I think, the only honest homage an honest representation of live theater because it's done so with a live show.
Yes.
I don't like the live performance things that they do with like Hairspray and Grease and Rocky Horror Show. I don't think those work personally. I think that filming a stage show in the way that it is meant to be performed as a stage show and then filming that is a great representation of how the story is meant to be told.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I think. And I also think, too, it will remind people that theater is really important. And there's a certain type of experience that you have with theater that cannot and will not be replaced by film. As much as I love film and as much as I do love movie musicals, they're, you know, it's so important to our culture. And I think that it's wonderful that they're coming back into popularity. But I think the integrity that comes with the artistic choices, that can get lost in translation.
Sure.
So I personally think everyone should watch this for the story and also for the right way to see this story. Yeah. What about you? Because I didn't say everything.
I would wholeheartedly recommend this. I agree with everything you said. I feel like the nice thing is that storytelling will never go out of style.
No.
Even if Broadway shutters forever, which it won't. But even if it did, we would still find a way to tell stories.
Yes.
And we would find a way to gather people in the same place because for actors, the original misplaced personality, we need an audience to tell our story and to thrive. So we would just find a way to do that. Mm-hmm. That being said, this hit me for a lot of different reasons. Mm. And again, I agree with everything you just said about the necessity of theater and storytelling and all that. I think this show really comes along not only once in a generation, but now being able to see it, even though you're not there in person, but being able to see a story which is true. It's a true story about very flawed people.
Yes.
Who create something that is ultimately a perfect good.
Yes.
A land of self-evident laws of knowing that all men are created equal, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, away from a tyrannical rule. And let's all be honest, there's a man in the White House right now who wishes to be president for life. A man who has publicly said, wow, I wish we had something like China has because they have a president for life. Why don't we have that? The grand part of the American experiment, again, is that like anyone can run for president. Anyone can run and serve in public office. But look at how flawed and finite and frail these individuals are who ended up creating the country that we live in. Mm-hmm. And I think now it's more important than ever to realize that we all live and are a part of this great nation. We all have more in common than we do apart from the partisan bickering and Democrats versus Republicans and vice versa, and owning the liberals and Republicans are crazy and all this kind of stuff. There's so much division right now that it was really refreshing to see a story of so many people from so many different countries and ideals and backgrounds like come together because we did not want to be ruled by a tyrant and we wanted something better for ourselves. We have a grand experiment, and here we are. Tomorrow is 244 years in the making. A lot of stuff has worked, a lot of stuff has not worked, and I think we're seeing a lot of that come to the forefront now as far as like our healthcare system, income inequality, inherent racism in our country, which is one of the things that the show both touched on and shied away from.
Yes.
And as I examined that, it was interesting to me that George Washington's, the fact that Washington owned slaves was never really referenced.
I know, I thought
Thomas
about that
Jefferson
too.
was, But also, this is Lin-Manuel talking to a black actor.
I know.
So at the same time, I think that was maybe, and I can't speak for Lin or what was going on.
You can't?
I can't, unfortunately. The fact that it is such a multiracial cast kind of takes care of that argument, at least for the sake of the show.
I think that it's
not that it excuses slavery, but at the same time, the message in the show, because it is so multiracial, predominantly black, I would say, maybe diffuses that argument a little bit for the sake of the show.
I think that
racism.
I think that it's because it's portrayed by people that are not white. Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
Because it's portrayed by people that are not white. That is evident in and of itself that the people and the things that they had done that were not right, that were not just, that did not make for the America that we want to see, which is why I think we have Black Lives Matter happening.
Yes. And why so many people are on the side of Black Lives Matter now than they were 4 years ago.
I think it speaks to I don't think that they needed to talk about it, because it's evident that that is something that is in the process of changing.
Yes.
Perhaps. I don't know.
It's a part of the story itself.
Yes.
So I feel like that sort of racism, class warfare, all of that stuff, all of those elements are part of a good story if it's told well, and this one is told well.
Yes.
So again, like there were so many heavy themes that weighed upon me, like watching it, because you can almost look at this story and be like, wow, look how young and innocent we were 244 years ago. Look at where we are now. But also at the same time, what I'm really encouraged by is a lot of people, especially since 2018 and the elections that we've had, a lot of people are just like, fuck this, I'm going to run.
Oh yeah.
You know,
you don't need to be perfect to make a positive change.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to run for office. Like I'm serving, greasy food and slices of pie at the diner one day. And then I just decide to run for public office and really enact the change that I wish to see, because there's so much injustice that I see. So the time that we're living in now, this moment, these movements we're living in now, especially coming up to November, there's so much on the front burners culturally right now that is so weighty and so important. And I hope that work continues forward. So it inspired me to like really put my money where my mouth is, and hopefully we'll inspire people to do this.
And really quickly, one other thing I wanted to note is that I also too really specifically want to call out how I think, again, we've already touched on how important it is that this cast, when cast in local productions or whatever, maintains that casting.
Yes,
that's so crucial
to
and
the
so
integrity
important
of the show.
I remember when I was in A Year with Frog and Toad, the guy who was cast as Frog was black, and one of the letters that he got from one of the little kids said, "It was so great to see someone like me on stage." Wow, a little black girl. And like where we're from Portland, Oregon, like that's a pretty like non-diverse town. Yeah, and this is another example of slowly but surely we're not there yet. We still have work to do. But to be able to have somebody go to a show and see themselves represented on stage is huge, and something that we can't back away from or shy away from.
And another great part again was like the collective work we can do together, even though you may have a different opinion than me. Yeah. We may be voting for a different person, not in real life. Megan and I are voting for the same person. But we are, we may see differently on a lot of topics, but at the same time, like, I think in the end, we all want the same thing.
We all want to be happy and free of pain and able to pursue what makes us excited about life.
Yes.
That's it. If what makes you excited about life is torturing baby ducks, maybe go talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist.
Yes.
And just draw pictures. The other thing I was going to say too, and this is something that, again, I'm tying in with a lot that I'm learning about ways that I can improve, is if you are a woman and you have played a role that was originated or meant for someone that is Black, Hispanic, Latino, whatever, if you played it, take it off your resume. I do not care if it was a lead. I do not care if it was an amazing playhouse. it is offensive to keep that on your resume. So there are a couple of roles that I am taking off my resume because that should not be there to give anybody any ideas that that kind of casting is okay.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we can do.
Yeah. The work that we have yet to do and how far we've come and how far we still need to go.
Yes. At any rate, we got on a tirade.
We did.
We sure did. We are passionate about things, aren't we?
Yeah, because you're dealing with history, you're dealing with true stories, you're dealing with more or less factual information.
Yes.
But the themes still resonate 250 years later. So this is just good storytelling. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't watched Hamilton yet, just do it at some point this weekend. And do your country a service.
And now we are very excited. We already know what our next movie is going to be, but Stafford's given us a bit of a tip if you tuned in last week that we're not going to tell you. You got to follow us on Instagram to find out what next week's movie is going to be.
That's right.
So follow us on Instagram or Twitter. The handle is SIMAC, SIMAC podcast, to find out what our next movie is going to be. Please subscribe and share. Remember that all sponsorship money that we make for June and for July is going to go to the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. So if you can't donate, then you share the shit out of this podcast, because the more listens that we get, the more money that we get out of sponsorships.
That's right.
I think that's everything.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for spending your 4th of July weekend with us. Have a very safe and happy holiday.
Please
wear masks and physically distance. And don't light your apartment on fire like that unfortunate person in Brooklyn. Yeah. Please be careful out there. Don't have fights with Roman candles. And
even though they're really fun.
Right. Yes. We've all been there. Be safe. Thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye. Alexander Hamilton.
What's your name, man?